statement is abortion is murder. It's an epistemological game, meaning you're going to pick what you think, choose stand on where you think, and then I'm going to ask you why, and we'll talk about it a little bit. That's the gist of it. You're free to move and change, depending on if you hear a reason that's given that is persuasive to you, one direction or another, and that's about it. Any questions? Okay, so we're going to start in the middle. You'll sing on. Okay. And then have in your head what you already think. Don't do your best not to be influenced by anybody. And I'll count down from 3, and then you pick a spot, and I'll have you give me reasons why. Okay, ready? 3. First, abortion is murder. 3, 2, 1, pick. Oh, great. Okay. Okay, interesting. All right, 2 slightly disagree, and 1 strongly agree. Very good. Let's start. Oh, can I play? You want to play? Okay, abortion is murder. You're picking your spot? Okay, wonderful. Strongly disagree for 1, 2 on slightly disagree, and 1 on strongly agree. This should be good. Let's just start to my left. Abortion is murder. You strongly disagree. Why? What are the reasons that you strongly disagree with that statement?
Because... Okay, hold on. One of the biggest things is that the societal difference and impact placed on abortion has been so heavily affected by religion and ministry that the ethical and medical is getting pushed aside for morality. Because there's the fact of there's so many women, young girls, just people who can get pregnant that they have had to sit through and suffer their babies that they did want dying inside of them, not being able to do anything about it because of politicians who have never had to carry a child. Okay. So it being murder would also... There's the complexity of when does life begin. Okay. Because Christianity likes to say that life begins at conception, when Jewish law says that life begins at first breath when God breathes into you. So even that religious morality has different waypoints.
So would you say, and I'll come back to you, but would you say you strongly disagree that it's murder because you're not sure yourself when human life begins? Would that be accurate?
Yeah, that is a good point to say it. Murder has such heavy societal connotations that to put basically almost, not to diminish it, but basically murder is being used as a buzzword in this connotation to be such extreme and to get that vocal reaction out of people.
Sure, let's just say, let's come back. Thank you. I'll come back to you. I have a question for you, but that's good. Okay, thank you. All right, you only slightly disagree that it's murder. I'll just start in the back. Talon, why do you only slightly disagree?
Well, because I think it does matter when it happens. So, like, I think before...
When what happens?
Abortion. If you get an abortion.
Oh, when the abortion takes place,
I think before 3 months, it's fine. But, like, if you can't get one at 6 months, because, like, a baby can be born at 6 months and, like, be alive.
Okay, why the difference there, 3 months versus 6 months? That changes it to murder.
You can't have a baby at 3 months, but at 6 months, you can have a premature baby, and it can still live on its own.
Okay, so you're saying the dependency of the child on the mother changes it from murder to not murder somewhere between 3 months and 6 months?
Yeah.
Okay.
It grows.
So it's definitely still dependent on, so for you it's mainly
just the time of what happens.
The time when it happens based on whether or not baby can live outside the womb.
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
Correct.
Okay. All right, Talon.
Hi.
Zach, what do you think? Why are you slightly disagree?
Well, actually, to be honest, for the question, I should probably be on disagree.
Oh, okay. All right. Fair enough. You can change. You can change anytime.
So, to 100% honestly, I don't view abortion as murder.
Okay.
Normally, if a woman is getting an abortion, there's a reason behind it.
Okay.
It's either to protect her own life, to make sure that the quality of life of the child is to par with the normalcy of quality of life. And just after that, I just don't view it as murder. It's, yes, a child is dying, but at the same time that these two people have shown that there's also a difference in when a person is actually alive. I probably stand in the middle between these two again, where I go with probably first heartbeat.
First heartbeat is when the unborn.
I don't really know when is the first heartbeat.
Okay,
but,
yeah. It's really early, so you'd be against almost all abortions happening.
That's
6 weeks. 6
that's
weeks.
actually not quite true because the heart
No.
is not. So the
Sorry, go on.
Sorry.
Go on, you're good.
So the fetal heartbeat is actually a misnomer because the heart is not fully formed until way later in the pregnancy. What they are sensing as the fetal heartbeat is actually the electrical impulses of the brain starting to connect to the organs, but there is no formed heart that beats truly until I think it's around 5 to 6 months is when the heart truly beats and starts pumping its own blood through the baby's body. Otherwise, the fetal heartbeat is registering the electrical impulses of the brain connecting to the forming organs.
Well, we can come back to that, but for the purposes of your answer, Zach, is you're simply saying the beginning of the heart beating is the mark of a individual who's worthy of protection from being killed. Would you say something like that?
Correct.
Okay, so we'll come back to that,
All right.
but something like the beginning of the heart beating. Okay, we're gonna go over here. Remind me your name?
Bailey.
Bailey, why are you strongly agreeing that it's murder?
In my opinion, a life is a life no matter what point. And one of my big arguments is that in some situations, there's a mother who wants the child, and then from the point of conception to the point of birth, it's a baby. And I don't understand why there's any point in there where that changes. In my opinion, a baby is a baby from when it is conceived. And so in my opinion, it's murder no matter what point.
Yeah, okay, so you would say from the moment of conception, there's a unique individual in formation.
Absolutely.
Whenever the heart is beating, it's a developing of the same
Yes.
organism.
Yeah, that's 100%.
Okay, so this is a common distinction that we've had between this side, is that Bailey, sorry.
Yep, that's okay.
We had Haley yesterday, that gets at multiple issues I think you guys said, which is what reason is there for you, if I can summarize, and you can correct me, but what reason would there be for you that there's all of a sudden the point that you're choosing, say 3 months or 6 months, why does that mean that organism, that young developing human child, is now worthy of protection under the law, let's say, or just morally in general, or not? What is the reason, for instance, the heartbeat, or perhaps any other reason? Go ahead. Yep.
I think a clarification I need to make is that I don't like abortions. I wish that we lived in a world where they didn't have to be a thing, but because of the state of our world and society, they have to be, because there are people that are not capable to be parents. I wish we could have a world where abortions were never needed.
Why would you say you don't want them to happen? What's the reason there?
Because I love children. I love kids. I have little siblings. I would die for my little siblings in an instant. But the thing is that my choice on the fact of that I would give up anything for any child is not a choice other people can make. Whether they have a disability that prevents them from being proper caring parents, whether it be physical or genetic or anything of that instance, if we set the hard line that creates abortion is murder, which prevents that availability and access to those who need it, that creates this fear and this desperation that has come to be in our country. So I don't like abortions. I wish they didn't have to be a thing, but they are medically and societally necessary in our world.
So it gets to it's a similar issue, and Bailey, if you have any thoughts too.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
okay,
do,
go ahead.
I guess.
Sure, that's fine.
No, that's okay. You bring up a great point. It's really hard because there are a lot of parents who there's an unexpected pregnancy or an unwanted pregnancy, and it's a really sad situation. But in my opinion, I don't think that the abortion is the only option. I feel like there's plenty of other options, whether that's adoption or foster care, or there's plenty of families that are looking to take in that kid. And I know that there's situations where that's not always the case, and sometimes the mother can't carry a child. And that's different because there's been scientific research that says that if it's a medically induced situation, sometimes it's not counted as an abortion if it's for medical purposes. And I understand that there's some situations where people think that abortion is the only option, but in my opinion, I don't think it is, and I don't think it's needed.
So I want to come. That's good. Thanks. I want to come back to the issue. It seems like there's still. Sorry. What's your name? Aylin. Your statement of you wish it weren't necessary, it seems to imply that there's something morally undesirable happening. Obviously, otherwise, if it's just anything, any procedure, whatever, you got to get your toenails clipped. Nobody is like, we want toenail clipping to be safe, legal, and rare, right? But with abortion, so it comes back to the issue of murder, of course. If abortion is murder, is the question, obviously. It seems to be the distinction of a human child. And at what point and for what reason would you say now it's worthy of protection and now it's not? Or now it's murder or now it's not? Same question. Any thoughts, Zach or Talon? Talon, right? Yeah. Because you both gave reasons. You both gave some kind of cutoff point. It seems to me, correct me if I'm wrong, yours was heart beating. Yours was viability is the probably more technical term. The baby can survive outside the womb. Why does that mean that moment it's now not murder? Or is murder, rather. Before that moment, it's not murder. What changes? What's the reason there for that for you, if you have one?
Well, I wouldn't really call it murder either way. I would just call it an abortion, because
Okay.
I don't think it's just kind of an aggressive word to use. But yeah, I don't really have much thoughts on it.
Okay.
I went to a Catholic school my whole life,
Yeah.
and they tried to sell me on it, and I just think the woman should be able to choose, because there's rape and other things that happen, uncontrollable things. So.
Okay.
Same for me. I went to a Christian private school through 8th grade,
Mm-hmm.
was in the church basically my entire teenage years and all that sort of stuff. And it's just, like Talon said, murder is a very aggressive term for something that happens. Using murder tries and makes you think of it in black and white when it is a very complex issue.
Well, we do. So there is a black and white aspect to it, though. Would you not agree? Because we have someone, Bailey is saying it's a human child in development. So even the heart question, like whatever exactly you would call the heart beating, clearly it's the heart developing as it's going along, like all the rest of the body. That's, as anybody who's taken anatomy or embryology, it's a developing human child. And the statement from a strongly agree person is that's a human baby and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Does the size make a difference? Why? So that the black and white aspect, certainly there's complications and details and nuance in certain aspects of this. But part of the issue I want to get at is just say the distinction between you guys is it's a human child developing. Why would you say it's okay to end that human's life versus the reason Bailey gave, which is it's a human child. It's young. It's going to get older. Yeah.
I like to actually take that up.
Okay.
It actually, for me, it comes back to that quality of life. And yes, Bailey did bring up that our foster care system is an option, which I scoffed at, especially the one in America. Like, yes, it's a place that we can move our children to, but the quality of life that those children have are abysmal. I've had multiple friends from the foster care system. Sometimes they get placed into great homes and they prosper because of that, but more often than not, they get placed into these terrible homes that these parents, quote unquote, take care of them. They've only do it because they want the money from the government, and then the actual life of those children are worse than other kids.
Sure. So you wouldn't. So here's one thing. However, I'll come back to you. We just had a gal just before you got here actually say she's from whatever, another country I can't pronounce, Kazakhstan, and she was adopted, and she was in a foster care or in an orphanage for several months or a couple of years, something. And she was very passionately saying it was much better that she wasn't killed because her life is wonderful. She's extremely thankful, and so it does come back to the question. Part of the response is, so that might all be true. It may be, in fact, accurate that the foster care is a huge mess, depending where you are or whatever. Is the option for you better to say, let's end that child's life? If, in fact, if I come back to the point, we're talking about a human child. So foster cares are horrible. Let's just say they are often. Not always, obviously. But is your response to, well, why then would it be okay to end the child's life? Is that a better thing than giving them the possibility, like the gal earlier, of having, in fact, a wonderful life, as she says?
So if I understand all of that correctly,
Yeah.
I got to be honest, I'm not the brightest person around.
Neither
But
am I. So you're in good company.
thank you. I've even had this discussion with a past roommate of mine.
Mm-hmm.
If laws are passed where abortion is just completely illegal, and foster care gets revamped, adoption is widely accepted, and we can actually take care of these kids a lot better than we have before, I'd be more okay with banning almost all abortion.
Okay.
The almost part is for the young girls, the rapes, and any other part of the bad areas.
So let's just say, for the sake of argument, I'm with you. Let's make an exception for all rape and incest. Then you're saying for the rest of the 99% of abortions that take place, you would be full on against them.
Something I would like to break into is that it is not 99% to 1%. There is an overwhelming disproportionate majority for rape and incest cases needed for abortion. It is not a 99 to 1%.
Well, I don't think that's true. We could talk about that.
It's a smaller percentage of rapes. I understand that it is a smaller percent, but I do agree with you. Even though it is a smaller percent, it's a big deal. And so that's where I from what I've seen with people who relate to facts and information, it is a smaller percent. So I'm not sure the exact number, but I do agree with you that it's a much smaller percentage.
Yep. Go ahead.
If they make it illegal, they're not making abortions illegal. They're just making safe abortions illegal. Like, people are gonna have them either way.
They're going to revert back to what happened in the early 1900s.
Yeah.
What if okay, all right. Thanks, man. All right, thanks. See ya. Well, let me move to this, and then maybe we'll try and end here. What would you want to say to that side, not to Bailey per se, but to Bailey in this case, that you would want to say as the reason to move away? And then I'll ask Bailey the same question. What would be the most persuasive reason you have for why you're here? To tell to someone on the strongly agree side that it's a murder, why they shouldn't be there, let's say. Either of you, if you want.
I mean, all of these are difficult questions, so I do want to think about it before I just blur it out.
No, that's fine. You can take your time if you want. Or I can start with Bailey. Either way.
That would probably be best.
Bailey,
Yeah,
okay.
I can.
All right, what do you say?
One thing I will say, I really appreciate your guys' outlook and your opinions. I'm someone who likes to look at both sides before I make a decision. But the one thing that I like to always look at is factual information. So I know you guys are probably solid in your opinions, and I value that a lot because I'm the same way. But if you guys are interested, one thing that I would suggest is to look at the factual information. I don't know, is it all right if I plug a website? Is that okay? I don't know if you guys have ever heard of liveaction.org. They offer a lot of really great information from scientists and people who are professionals in the medical field that have a lot of great information. Yes, it is a pro-life website, but if you go into it with an unbiased opinion, it can really open your eyes to both sides. I'm not trying to change your opinions. 100% think that you guys deserve to have your own opinions. But to anybody, you guys and anybody who shares opinions with you, I would definitely suggest that you look at all the information that's out there.
Okay, thanks. And it's fine. Obviously, encouraging certain resources is a great thing. I will say, however, respect and good conversation is one thing, but I would state, on one hand, the opinion on the matter isn't exactly what we're after here. What we do want to believe in most is what's true. So to come back to the issue at the beginning, if what's true is in fact that the unborn is a human developing child, the disagreement is a fairly objective one. It has not a lot to do with opinions per se. Not to squash your thing, but I just think that's a really important thing, such that the idea is you should and want to have yourself open to being persuaded towards saying, okay, for instance, if I don't have a good reason, not to pick on you, Zach, but just to say, if I don't have a good reason, the heart beating, if you were to decide, man, that doesn't seem like a good reason, that all of a sudden it's now murder and before it wasn't, you would be willing to say slightly disagree or even unsure or all the way over, whatever, and vice versa. But I'll bring the question back, same thing, and then we'll wrap up. Do you have anything for you that would either persuade you to move or anything that you would want to say that you would want to persuade someone else?
I guess something that I would say is that, like was brought up earlier, the American foster system is an absolute mess. I have 2 younger siblings that were adopted out of foster care, and their lives before coming to live with my parents weren't great. So it was for their best that they were put into the system, and luckily they found a home with my parents, and despite my issues with my parents now, they still provide my younger siblings a good home. But at the same time, there are so many kids that don't luck out, because it is lucking out to get good parents out of the foster system. Saying that abortion is murder is something that cannot be changed on. Whether or not abortions, how much is allowed, what practices there's so many other things, because proper sex education, proper ability to contraceptives and all of that stuff, basically taking down the stigma around reproduction goes a long way in helping prevent the need for the non-rape and incest cases. So I can't be changed on abortion is murder, because that murder for me is an aggressive buzzword being used on this issue. Morally, I wish abortion didn't have to exist, but it is needed in our society.
If I can real briefly come back to that, because I didn't think I changed the subject on you earlier. Why is it you think it's not good? I can't remember what you just said all of a sudden, but you wish it wouldn't take place. Why is that? Specifically, when it happens, you're saying that moment of abortion is in and of itself something that's unfortunate. You want it to be a rare thing. Why?
Because I wish that we had a world where every child could be loved and cared for the way that they needed to be.
So you're saying what's happening is a child at some stage of development that's life is being ended. That's the reason that it's a sad thing. It should be a rare thing.
There are developmental stages similar to what Talon had saying, to where the viability outside, because before that it is a drain on the pregnant person themselves. So yes, when it reaches a stage of viability outside of the womb, then it can be considered a child. But before that stage of viability outside, and even then there are some preemie children that suffer their entire lives from having been born premature, there is that developmental point that they can survive outside the womb, where at that point that is a back and forth case by case to be taken up with the pregnant person and their doctor specifically.
Okay, maybe we can wrap up. Any thoughts, final closing thoughts from you, Bailey or Zach?
No, just like I said, I would be dissuaded to.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Well,
that's good.
not that abortion shouldn't happen. I'm with if abortion shouldn't happen if we can make sure that the quality of life, to ensure that these kids have the love, the houses needed, the family required to grow up and be healthy, essentially. If we can guarantee that, I would step more into being like, yes, we should stop most abortions.
It seems like, if I can actually, I was going to end, but one last thing. It seems like to me, both of you have a belief that what is happening is the destruction of an unborn life, but you have some other reason why you're saying it's okay to do that. Would you say that's accurate?
Well, there is potential in life for everyone. There is potential in life in every single thing we do. The many paths of fate, future, destiny, whatever you want to call it. The potential for everything is out there, but at the same time, the potential life of one child is being weighed against perhaps a mother's ability to parent her 4 other children. So the potential is something that you can't hedge on, because the potential of one person could be the same potential that, sad to say, if that child didn't exist, then maybe their mother could go on. We always say that the child could cure cancer, but what about the mother if she didn't have to be a mother, if she could pursue her life unhindered with a child? So that's the one thing, is that perspective being put into things is always being weighed back and forth. So potential is what potential is. Every egg and sperm combination, there's a bajillion sperm sent out to meet with a chance to meet one egg. There is potential for anything.
Well, yeah, I agree. Here's maybe more to the point. One last thing, hopefully last thing, is simply, I'll put it this way. Would you agree that ending the life of a 1-day-old born baby is wrong? That's infanticide. Would you agree with that? He's old, got a passing in his mouth, he's dressed in cute baby clothes. Can you kill that baby? Is that murder?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
cycling back to Jewish law, when you draw first breath, God breathes into you, and so your life does begin.
So you believe it's a murder to kill that day-old baby?
If they survive outside of the womb, then they have survived outside of the womb and they have drawn their first breath of life.
So I think the point is that it's, if I may, I think borrowing from Bailey's original comment, but is simply to say what changes, because if that's murder that can be prosecuted under the law, then what has changed prior to birth, whether that's 2 days perhaps, or 2 weeks, or 2 months, or 8 months, what's the thing that's happening that changes? And as I was saying earlier, you both seem to agree that you're ending the life of a human child, but you're saying, however, it's okay because the adoption system is crummy or this or that. I'm not trying to make light of those things, but you have a reason that says it's okay to end that child's life. I would suggest and push and say, what is the difference between that day-old baby or a 2-day-old baby? How come reasons can't justify killing the child then?
Because once again, you are placing all of your bets on potential, because that baby, if carried to term, could still die during the birthing process. You are still placing so much potential and betting on things for the fact of before the baby is born, it is wholly dependent, and I don't want to say parasitic because it's not fully parasitic, but that baby is fully dependent on its mother's body, to the point of pregnancy is traumatic even if it goes well. The trauma pregnancy puts on a person's body is unbelievable, even if everything right goes imaginable. So the fact is that when it comes down to that person's body to have bodily autonomy, they get to make that choice. And by making the blanket statement, abortion is murder, it causes people to not be able to maintain their own bodily autonomy. Same as how our justice system has different degrees of murder and has manslaughter. This issue is complex. Yes, there is a life potential ending, but to keep it to your statement, abortion is murder, that is where I disagree. That word is too aggressive and strong for an issue this complex.
Okay. Yep, last thing.
I know you guys are trying to wrap
We'll
up.
end, that's right.
Okay, I know that you mentioned the potential of life, and in my opinion, if you're worried about like, oh, well, the baby could die right after it's born. If you have that view on life, at any point of life, someone could die. I know people who died. I know a little girl who died when she was 5 or 6. I had an uncle who passed away when he was 17 and a grandpa who passed away when he was 40. And I know plenty of people and I have a teacher who had a baby for 3 days and it passed away. If you have that aspect of it on the view of life and how worthy that life is, in my opinion, I don't think it matters how long that life is going to last. I think that person has every right to life just as much as you and I do, and you and I do.
Well, that's clearly a primary distinction, is the view of protection of life as simply it's deserving of life. You mentioned even bodily autonomy. I think one might say, in fact, the bodily autonomy of the unborn child ought to factor into there as well. But
the thing is that an unborn baby doesn't have autonomy. It can't function autonomously. It is fully dependent on the body it is still inside the womb of.
Sure. Yep. Well, it also is very dependent on the others outside the womb as well. Would you agree? It's 100%. I've had a few, and they are completely dependent for quite a long time. In fact, they're still dependent. About 7 years old. What would you say to that?
Well, the fact is that it's when that dependency is being forced on someone else, where they don't get to choose whether or not you chose to have your children support and help raise them, so that you made that choice to help parent and grow them. When those people are stripped of that choice is when it becomes the issue.
Well, let's wrap up. We can talk more, but we heard some of the reasons why you would or wouldn't be persuaded. I hope that you would be still open to considering discussing, and yeah. That's about it. We'll just end. We could obviously keep talking, but thanks, guys. Thanks for participating. Okay.
I think what you guys are doing, by the way, is really neat. It's
Good.
really interesting.
Yeah,
Very eye-opening.
great. Good.
Hopefully you guys have had a good experience.